Today is February 9th, 2024. The human mind is a very, very complicated thing. The human mind it is possible to not understand it for the rest of my life. It's something like it's like what I don't know, which means that on this side there's information, on this side there's no information. And so it's a clear separation between not knowing and knowing. And that can go on for the rest of my life. Just like people who essentially, I was thinking about this. It relates to it relates to it essentially relates to uh, when Peter was when the disciples was walking by, and after Jesus had passed, okay, and then these two were walking on the road, and then Jesus came by and says, "It's me," and these two recognized Jesus, right? I don't know how they do it. That's How do you recognize a deity that is all encompassing, everything, wide as infinity, and then some? How do you understand? How do you see somebody like that and say, "Oh, that's Jesus"? How do you do that? How do you? It's anyway. So so now it's not knowing and knowing. Okay. So today, in the past, what I would do is psychologically thinking is that on a subconscious level, what I was doing is I felt that I was missing out. Okay. And so that's what that's why it's like there's a repetitive behavior. It's a repetitive mechanical behavior. So at Westside Drive-In, what I do is I make fingers. Once I get into a mode, I just work on it. I'm in a trance. I Because making fingers is essentially taking sinews off, fatty tissues off, putting it into a chilled chilled pan. Okay, it's a three pan. It's a deep three pan, which means it's long and it's deep, and it's being chilled underneath the same type of a pan, essentially being refrigerated with ice. And I put it in there. After I take the fat and the sinews and and pieces of meat that comes along with it and put it into this three pan. And then what I do is I slice it, usually about three layers of this chub. Okay, and and what I do is after that, then I take each one of them and then I slice it into a shape of a finger, and equally long as a finger, and then I take that and put it into a uh, half pan. Uh, Half pan, and it's also equally chilled with another half pan that is acting as a refrigerator. And then I have on the left side, I have another same setup with a half pan, but medium sized depth. Okay, where I keep the fresh meat. And then once I start to the time that I finish, it's all mechanical. It's subconscious working. It's autopilot. I have a If I were to have this auto body movement, what I would do is I'd be looking at myself, and it's a mechanical device that's working. And the thought is in a cocoon of thinking about day trading. And when the last meat chub is taken care of, then that auto automatic process that's controlling, the subconscious is controlling it, controlling my body, and I'm done. Now that can be haphazard when it comes to day trading, when the proper sequence of unlocking sequences of getting into a trade and not getting into a trade will be an issue, because it's a active behavior that consistently promotes a undermining of the PNL. But if I have the proper sequence of unlocking the entry and an exit and both fronts, then what I can do is, even if I'm in a trance of making a day trade, I'll make the right trades. Now, how do I get there? First of all, I had to remove myself on a subconscious level of missing out. Okay, missing out is something that can essentially deter somebody from being an alcoholic, because the alcoholic has this subconscious thinking that says that they're always constantly missing out on something, and so they have to have it. A long time ago, when anyway, that's what happened. So so today I realized that there has to be a separation, a subconscious separation, even after a few days of weekend when the forex is closed, and then when I jump into it, that momentary span of anticipation will cause my subconscious to feel the become traumatized of missing out on a trade. That's what happens. Okay, so being conscious of that myself being having this debilitation, mental debilitation, that I'm missing out, detaches me from entering in this mode so that I can think about it. Okay, the missing out, the fear of missing out is so important. That is a concept that I have mentioned many times, but to a depth that I understand right now, it's subconscious, and it fixes things too. A lot of things. Fear of missing out is being an alcoholic, being addicted to cigarettes, because it's fear of missing out. Okay, it's the habit causes the person to feel on a subconscious level to be constantly be stimulated by either caffeine or something, some sort of emotional attachment to some certain things. It's a human condition that causes a person to experience a emotional subconscious a ride that will either get to a point where there's a wake-up call. This Steenbacher did it for me. That he and another YouTuber mentioned this. His name is Abdullah Rashid. Mentioned this. He was walking through this in the past. I would look at it, and it didn't make any sense to me at all. I thought, oh, that's interesting. But when he point by point explained to me why Dr. Brett Steenbacher was mentioning these things, what seems to be a blank page just seemed to have written words in it, and then I somehow dramatically started to understand what those words meant. And that meant, and then boils down to a psychological human condition that is related to everyone. It impacts everyone. That's why trading is so difficult. That one part of it is very difficult. Let alone trying to figure out what that 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 technical edge is, that's another part of these things. Even some of these professionals talk about them being like, uh, at moments they would fall into that trap. Okay, in moments they would fall into that trap. So they have this. They have to have this, uh, a tool of some sort of self, awakening thing that they must do in order to extricate themselves from 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 getting into this mode of missing out that impacts the subconscious and the psychological side. And so when he explained to me what Dr. Steenbarker was talking about, I started to understand the correlation between the subconscious side. See, these alcoholics on a subconscious level, they cannot. They're like detached. They're like electrons and protons. To them, there's a electron and proton, and what the only way to remove themselves from that mental condition, it is a mental condition. Physiologically reminds them on a constant basis, but it is a mental condition to separate themselves from that behavior. And that separation of that behavior is essentially understanding the separation between electrons and protons, because they're distant and they cannot be together at once, either on this side or that side. So it has to it has to it has to jump. Okay, it has to jump, miraculously jump from this side to the other side, and that can only be done by the self. Okay, so hopefully I got that. I hopefully I got this concept of missing out.